thomo ya gona go busa phula ena kaofela ena o mokgethwa
a ke batlo lo bua gore na go tla etsagala go bua ka bonyana fela e tla go kgotha.
Where's the blame?
Hello everyone, welcome back to ASR, African Stories Realized. This is our weekly review of Outlaws Season 2, Episodes 5 and 6. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Episode 5 picks up in Okabeni, where the Biyela home was on fire after being attacked by an angry mob. Uncle Emmanuel and Aunt Tlali rushed through the burning house, where they found an unconscious Nolande. Firefighters soon arrived, evacuating Emmanuel, Tlali, and the pregnant Nolande, who appeared to be in a bad condition. After being treated by paramedics, Nolande refused to go to the hospital for the safety of her and the baby, despite having a cough and visible injuries. Aunt Tlali suggested that they call Bandile to report what had happened. However, the stubborn Nolande discouraged her, insisting that Bandile was preoccupied with the search for Mthunzi and the others. Tlali ignored her objections and called Bandile, but she wasn't able to reach him. Back in Lesotho, Bandile's standoff with Tladi's followers continued. He demanded they release Mthunzi and the other hostages, but Tladi remained defiant before shooting the boy that Bandile was holding. He collapsed as an angry Bandile lashed out at Tladi, but Leroux insisted that Bandile was to blame for using the boy as a human shield, while they quickly rushed to give him aid. At the Tlali household, where Sihle was treating a wounded Leta, Bandile, Leroux, and Spamola arrived carrying the boy who was shot by Tladi. Sihle immediately tried to give him medical attention, with Moretlo recognizing him as Dimpo's son, Mulifinyan, one of the teens in the community who had recently gone missing. Bandile then stole a moment to call Nolande, reassuring his wife that they had found a lead on Mthunzi that would bring him and the others home soon. Nolande expressed her relief and faith in him, but resisted mentioning the recent attack on their home. Meanwhile, Moretlo tried to console Mulifinyana's mother as she wept over his wounded body, lamenting Tladi's actions. Panic then ensued as the boy had a medical emergency, and despite Sihle's best efforts to revive him, he passed away as his mother was reduced to tears. Meanwhile, at Tladi's hideout, Mthunzi and the other hostages decided to make a run for it. Mthunzi uncuffed himself and the other hostages before they neutralized the guards and raided Tladi's house for supplies. Just as they were leaving, Buang confronted Mthunzi before the couple tussled, with Mthunzi eventually handcuffing her to a chair. He apologized and promised that he would be back for her. When they got back to the hideout, Tlali and Nyakalo confronted Buang, questioning how the hostages could have escaped. She revealed that Mthunzi stole the handcuff keys from her, but insisted that they couldn't have gotten far as a manhunt for the hostages ensued. Mthunzi and the other escapees navigated through the dark mountains, where Mthunzi used Tladi's phone which they had stolen to call Bandile, informing him that they had escaped and were hiding in the mountains. The episode ends with Bandile telling him to lay low, promising to come and fetch him as soon as possible. Episode 6 picks up with Bandile determined to make his way to the mountains to rescue Mthunzi and the rest of the hostages. Spamola and Leroux tried to warn him about the dangers that awaited him in the mountains, but Bandile wasn't hearing any excuses, reminding them that they grew up in the mountains stealing cattle, insisting that whether they're with him or not, he'll find his people. A reluctant Spamola and Leroux accompanied Bandile to the mountains. However, after a night of searching, Leroux once again warned him about how treacherous the mountains can be. Bandile tried to call him Mthunzi, but there was no network, so he grabbed his rifle and announced that he was leaving the car behind and going up the mountain alone, once again forcing Leroux and Spamola to reluctantly come with him. Meanwhile, the hunt for the hostages continued, but Tladi reprimanded Nyakalo for the carelessness of Buang, who was revealed to be her sister. Nyakalo then confronted Buang, accusing her of lying about the escape, suggesting that her leadership has been weakened because she has feelings for Mthunzi. However, Buang denied Nyakalo's claims and vowed to find the escaped hostages. Moretlo then arrived at Leabua's house, carrying Mulifinyana's lifeless body. A furious Leabua questioned why Moretlo brought a corpse into his home. However, Moretlo, who was accompanied by Mulifinyana's mother, pointed out that Leabua's son, Tlali, killed the boy, and he allowed it. She guilt-tripped him, reminding him that Mulifinyana's mother raised her children alone and relied on the boy, just as Leabua relies on Tlali. Meanwhile, Mthunzi and the other hostages were tired and lost in the darkness of the mountains, worried that Tlali and his men were close behind. They were slowed down even further when the older lady they were with sprained her ankle. Following day, they decided to rest by the river where Mthunzi tried to call Bandile, but struggled with the signal. He reassured his companions that they should stay put. However, after they argued over whether or not to start a fire, Sipho pulled out a gun and confronted Mthunzi. Sipho and one of the other escapees, Ntombi, stole all the food and supplies before fleeing. Mthunzi tried and failed to catch some fish for the remaining escapees as they decided to stay put. It wasn't long before Sipho and Ntombi were found by Buang, who demanded to know where Mthunzi and the others were. Sipho tried to pull his gun but was shot in the shoulder before Tlali interrogated him for Mthunzi's location. After recapturing all the hostages, Tlali called Bandile and once again demanded the ransom for them. The episode ends with Tlali violently whipping Mthunzi as Bandile listens to his cries over the phone. This season of Outlaws came heavy with the action. It's really impressive how they've managed to pull off these action scenes with what I suspect is a modest budget compared to Hollywood standards. I mentioned last week that the scene where an injured Lita arrived at the Tlali homestead with Sihle attending to her, and today's episodes confirmed that it should have been part of these episodes. I also expressed my disappointment after being left in suspense during Bandile's standoff with Tlali's followers. I understand that the timeline with the two storylines is very tight, which is why they arrive with the boy while Litz is being treated by Sihle. Sihle hasn't been given much to do, but with the medical emergencies she was treating today, there is potential for her to open up a clinic in the community. She also had a spell treating locals back in season 1, where they revealed the nearest medical assistant they can get was hours away. So there's potential there for Sitle's storyline. Some of us might have even forgotten that she's a doctor by profession. So I'm glad that the show is leaning into that. We guessed that Nyakalo and Buang might be related, and it was confirmed today that they are indeed sisters. Nyakalo does suspect that Buang let Mthunzi and the hostages get away because she has a thing for him. It's something she actually kind of clocked last week as well. Mthunzi being betrayed by Sipho was hilarious. If I'm not mistaken, Sipho is the farmer whose family was massacred by Tlali and his men during a raid last season. So he does have a deep hatred for him and the Basotho, which is why he doesn't like that Mthunzi was flirting with Buang. However, I do have to question why he came along for the wedding in Lesotho when he has such a deep-rooted hatred for the people. Initially, I thought the girl in Ntombi was the older lady's daughter, so imagine my shock when she teamed up with Sipho and abandoned the others. I do think Mthunzi should have tried to call the police as well. Bandile has been very erratic this season, and like I mentioned before, I don't think it'll end well. I think they're planning to kill off the character, or something will happen to Nolande and he'll blame himself. I actually thought she was gone at the beginning of the episode, so I was relieved that she survived, but she continues to risk her health and the babies by refusing to go to the hospital. I expect that Tlali's followers will eventually rebel against their king, especially because of the way he treats them and after he took the life of one of them. Lebua might also come to his senses and help stop the damage that Tlali's doing to the community. Because one thing Tlali was afraid of was that the hostages would make contact with the community and reveal everything that he's doing in the mountains, especially because most of them still believe him to be dead, including the police. I'm pleasantly surprised with how the season is going. Big up to the cast and production for bringing it to life. Feel free to leave your reviews in the comments. Outlaw Season 2 is streaming every Monday on Showmax. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with another review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is ASR for the love of African filmmaking and storytelling.